Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to demystify a really critical procedure for all of you medical coding students, the renal transplant. We're going to follow the journey of a donor kidney from the very start to the very end, and break down exactly how to code each step of the way. Let's get right into it. So, picture this. You're looking at a patient's chart, and you see the words, kidney transplant. What's your first instinct? You might think, okay, I just need to find the one single code for that. But, as you're about to find out, it's actually not that simple. And honestly, it's a lot more interesting. And right here, this is the most important thing to take away today. According to the official CPT guidelines, a renal allotransplantation, which is just a fancy way of saying a transplant from a donor, is not one single event. Nope, it's actually broken down into three totally distinct parts, three different components of physician work. Think of it like a three-act play, and each act gets coded separately. Okay, so before our kidney can even pack its bags for the trip, we as coders need to know which path it's going to take. There are two main kinds of renal transplantation, and you've got to understand the difference between them right from the get-go. This slide lays it out perfectly. On the one hand, you've got auto-transplantation, code 50380. The key here is auto, which means self. So this is when a surgeon removes a patient's own kidney and then just reimplanted it, maybe somewhere else in their body. But what we're focused on today is over on the right, allotransplantation. This is the big one we're following, a kidney's journey from a donor to a recipient. And it's the one that has those three separate parts. All right, let's dive into Act 1, the donor procedure. This is where the whole journey really starts. It's the nephrectomy, the actual removal of the kidney from the donor. This is ground zero. So when you're looking at coding this first stage, the donor nephrectomy, what is the absolute number one most critical question you have to ask yourself? The answer to this one question determines which code you're going to use. Just think about it for a second. Where did this kidney come from? And here is your answer. The first question is always, was the kidney from a cadaver donor or a living donor? For a cadaver, you're going to use code 50300. Pretty straightforward, right? It covers the harvesting and the cold preservation. But now, look at the living donor codes. 50320 for open surgery, 50547 if it's laparoscopic. And here's the crucial difference. Notice that last part. These codes also include the care of the donor. That's a huge deal and a place where new coders can sometimes trip up. The code isn't just for the organ, it's also for the person who so generously gave it. Okay, on to stage 2. The kidney's out, but hold on, it's not quite ready for its new home. It has to be prepped first. This is what we call the backbench preparation, and it's a really important and separately coded step that happens in between the donor and the recipient. So what in the world is backbench prep? Well, it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's all the super detailed work the surgeon does on that donor kidney outside of a human body. They're on a table or a backbench in the operating room, cleaning it up, trimming the vessels, just getting it absolutely perfect for implantation. This isn't part of the harvesting, and it's not part of the transplanting. It's its own separate service. And you probably guessed it, just like with the nephrectomy, the codes for backbench prep also depend on the type of donor. For a kidney from a living donor, you'll use 50325. That covers cleaning up the fat and getting the vessels ready. But for a kidney from a cadaver, you use 50323. So why the different code? Look really closely at the description. It includes the excision of the adrenal gland. That gland is often still attached when a kidney is harvested from a cadaver, so that extra step gets its own specific code. Now, real-world medicine is messy, right? Sometimes the standard backbench prep just isn't enough. What happens if the kidney's vessels or ureters are, well, complicated? What if they need some serious reconstruction to make sure they'll work in the recipient? Well, the coding guidelines have an answer for that. This is where codes 50327 through 50329 come into play. Think of these as your add-on codes for extra complex repair work. This could be things like venous anastomosis, connecting veins, or arterial anastomosis for the arteries, or ureteral anastomosis for the ureter. Any of these complicated repairs are reported separately on top of the standard backbench prep code. And that brings us to the grand finale, the final leg of the journey, stage 3, the recipient procedure. The kidney has been harvested, it's been prepped, and it is finally ready to be placed in its new home. For the recipient surgery, you're going to be looking at codes 5360 or 5365. Now, the really important thing to know here is what's included, what's bundled into these codes. They cover the actual transplantation, of course. They also might include a recipient nephrectomy, that is, if the surgeon has to remove the recipient's own unhealthy kidney. And critically, just like with the living donor codes, these always include the care of the recipient. It's the whole package deal for the person getting this life-saving organ. Okay, let's take a deep breath. We've walked through all 3 stages now. So let's step back for a second and put this whole journey together so you can see the big picture. This is how you're going to approach these cases every single time. So let's lock this in. 1, the donor nephrectomy. That's getting the kidney. 2, the backbench prep. That's getting the kidney ready. And 3, the recipient transplant. That's giving the kidney its new home. These are the 3 pillars of coding for a renal allotransplantation. Each one is a separate part of the process, and each one is reported separately. And hey, don't just take my word for it. This right here is straight from the CPT guidelines themselves. This quote, "This should be your North Star for transplant coding. 3 distinct components reported separately." Burn that phrase into your brain. It is the core principle that's going to save you from so many common coding mistakes. Okay, so you've mastered the main journey now. You know the 3 stages. But what about the detours? I mean, the recipient might need dialysis right up until the surgery, or other procedures could be involved. The CPT guidelines point you to separate codes for all those related services. So your next step as a sharp coder is to start exploring those related codes to paint the complete clinical picture. What are you going to look up first?